So every bass fisherman is wanting to get into using LiveScope right now. If you know what it is and you act like you don't want it, you're lying to yourself. Pretty much what you see is what is actually there. You know, it paints a picture and it's a live picture. So if you see something that looks like a tree underwater, it's a tree. If you see something that looks like a fish swimming around, it's a fish. Today, I'm gonna give you a couple tips to help you be more effective on your first couple trips to the lake after you get LiveScope. So the first really important thing when you're setting up your LiveScope and you're gonna go out and use it on whatever body of water you're fishing, it's gonna be relative. These fish keep interrupting me. But when you set up your LiveScope and you get on a body of water, one of the first things you set up is your range, you know, and the range means how far out in front of the boat are you going to be looking with your live view forward. For me, I've got a couple rules. A lot of times I'll set it to like 70 feet starting out, because 70 feet to me is like a great distance where I'm able to see everything on the screen really clearly. You know, if I set it, you could see something 80 or even 90 feet out, but it's not going to be as crystal clear as it is at 70. So I know if I'm seeing something, we are on a big school of fish here. I know if I'm seeing something out at 70 feet, I can cast to it, and we're still far enough away that I'm not spooking the fish. So don't try to do too much to it. Don't set it at 100 feet and expect to see it 100. And even the first couple times you use it, maybe even 50 is a good starting point. The second thing you're gonna notice, and this really helps me when I'm trying to cast at fish that I see out in front of the boat, is, you know, the fish are a lot of times a lot closer than what you think. Like 40 feet is less. I've learned since using LiveScope, 40 feet in the water is less than I originally really thought it was. Well, that was one thing that kind of struck me when I first was seeing fish out in front of the boat and casting to them. I was constantly casting too far. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You know, I think a lot of our preconceived notions, we know what 50 feet is, but when it's time to make a 50-foot cast, for me anyways, that was shorter than I really originally thought it was. And we'll go right into our next thing here. You can see what we're doing. I'm fishing vertical right now with a drop shot. So all of our electronics have 2D sonar, you know, straight downward looking sonar. With GARMIN LiveScope, you've got two different modes that you can use. You can use live view down or live view forward. Personally, on the front of my boat, I've got it set on live view forward all the time. But kind of the tip here is, like, I use that forward even when I'm fishing vertically. And the reason for that is I'm still able to have it set forward where I can be panning around looking for other fish, but it still shoots down. And not only does it shoot down, it still shoots out in front, but it shoots behind the boat a little bit. So what that allows you to do is drop your bait precisely on top of the fish whenever you see them. Like with 2D sonar, what we've had forever, you know, I've been growing up in Arizona, I fished vertical for my entire life. And when you see a fish on your 2D sonar, you don't necessarily know if it's right here or right here. You know it's below the boat, and you know you're close to it depending on how dense your mark is, but you don't know exactly where it's at. But with the live view forward, you can really tell if it's, you know, 1 foot in front of your trolling motor or 5 feet behind the trolling motor. And a lot of times what that allows me to do is actually lead the fish. Like when I'm really paying attention to my graph, I can see a fish possibly or swimming one direction. I can have my bait falling in front of that fish by the time it gets to where it's going. This next tip is actually not something that I thought of. A buddy told me about it, and it's something I've used since he told me. When you're selecting your weight that you're going to be fishing, whether it's a Texas rig or a drop shot or even a jig in some instances, with LiveScope, what that unit picks up for your bait and your weight, it doesn't go necessarily off the size of it, it goes off the density. That's why a lot of times the more dense fish are going to show up as more bright white objects, and the less dense objects are going to show up as kind of more subtle. So using a tungsten weight really makes a big difference, especially when you're drop shotting, because that tungsten is going to show up much brighter on your LiveScope. It's easier for you to see where your bait's at in relation to where the fish, and what you have to do to manipulate your bait and make that fish bite. So you can see how windy it is where we're fishing right here. One issue that we've always had in the past is interference, sonar interference with your electronics. You know, trolling motors that are not brushless, when those things are in motion, you're gonna have lines all the way up and down your screen like that, and it'll drive you nuts. The beautiful thing about a brushless trolling motor like the GARMIN Force is you can have your trolling motor running and your screen is clear, so that interference is a thing of the past. It's more of just of something to look for when you're trying to purchase a trolling motor than a tip that you're going to use on the water. But look for a brushless trolling motor, because you can see here, you can set your trolling motor on anchor lock and you're going to have no interference on your graph. So we're fishing an offshore hump here. You can see this little wad of fish. There's actually a tree that will come in the picture. There it is right there. These fish are sitting right next to the tree. Let's try to send our little drop shot. We talked about how that tungsten weight can help us on the fall. There goes that weight, and there's the worm. It's falling down. We are on the right side of the tree, the correct side of the tree where we saw more fish. The beauty of knowing that you're around fish is you can leave your bait in the water. I'm not sitting here wondering, oh, maybe I need to cast over there or over there. I know right now that there's a fish looking at it, and I can leave it down there and soak it until he actually bites it. For more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, check out the Anglers Happy Hour podcast on all podcast platforms.